In this section, we're going to talk about console input. In our previous section, we did a program which computed the area of a circle, but we, the programmer, determined the value for the radius. In this program, we're going to allow a user to enter that value to make this program much more useful. We've already done most of our boilerplate. I have to add a few more things. To read values from the keyboard, I have to use some additional code that's been written by someone else. It's in a library, like a normal public library where you go to borrow a book. We're going to use a library where we're going to borrow some code. The code we're going to use is called the scanner class. Let's go borrow that by adding, we'll say import java.util.scanner. So this now tells the compiler to go out and find the scanner class because I wish to use it. I'll write the code here to say scanner. This is the data type, and I'll call it input. I call it input to try to make sense. We could call it keyboard if we wanted to, or any valid identifier. We're just going to name it something that makes sense to our program. And we're going to assign that to a new scanner object. We're almost finished, but let me explain that. Later on in the course, we'll see more of what we're doing here with this new scanner. But basically, it's saying I need an object that represents the keyboard. So create me one, and I will use it. Now notice that Eclipse has this red line underneath it. That means there's something missing. There's something wrong with this. In this case, I have to tell the scanner what it's going to be helping me with, what device. It could potentially be a file or some other input device, but I want to tell it to use the keyboard. Now, line 8 says system.out.println. That's when I'm printing on the screen. Well, something similar is going to be used for input. It's called system.in. So if you think about my machine input device, well, that's keyboard. Line 8, my machine output device, that's the monitor. So now in line 5, I've created a new object. I'm calling it input that represents the keyboard. Okay, so we've done that. We're going to input the radius. Rather than me as the programmer saying what the radius is, I'm going to actually ask the user to tell me what the radius is. I could just simply write the line of code to input the value, and that would be syntactically correct. The compiler would not argue with me at all. But there's a problem. The program, when I execute it, would sit there and run waiting for input, and there'd be no visible way to represent the fact I needed to type something on the keyboard. Before input, always prompt the user to do something. Tell them, please do this, so that the user doesn't sit there looking at the screen, nothing's happening, because they're going to think the program is broken. And in a sense, it is. While it's not technically a syntax error, and it's not even a runtime error, it is a logic error, because now our algorithm has to expand, and we have to say, prompt the user for input, now read the input, then go do the computation. So see, we have to expand our algorithm to include the idea that the user needs to do something. And when the user is instructed to do something, he will say, okay, and type the right keys, press the enter key, and off we go. And it'll say, this program works just fine. We're going to do that. We're going to prompt, then we're going to read the value, and we're going to remember that value. Line 6 right now is declaring that value and remembering it. But we need to prompt the user and change it slightly. Now, I'm going to use a print, not a print line, print, because I want the input of the value to be on the same line. So I'm going to say enter radius of circle. My style is to put a colon and then a blank. You'll see how that works. Now, radius in line 8 is defined by the programmer. I'm going to rewrite line 8 and then get rid of line 8. You'll see the difference. Double radius. Eclipse is saying, hey, can't have radius defined twice. Radius is going to be assigned to input dot next double. That means read the keyboard for all the characters for legitimate double value, which can include the period, and we'll remember that as radius. Now, line 8 is the way we did it as the programmer determines the radius. I'm going to get rid of that because now we're being more flexible. We're going to let the user determine it, and that becomes my program. So let's run this now. The rest of the program stays the same. So our algorithm changed by prompting the user and reading the input. Let's run it. And now you see down here at the bottom, enter radius of circle. And if you remember the first time we did this, I said 2.5. And there we go. Pressed enter. Area with radius 2.5 is 19. Let's run it again. And I say 3.5. And there you go. Everything's just fine, except one step that I did not do. I will do that rapidly and we'll be finished. Now, we won't learn this technique till later, but I'm going to say if radius less than 0, that is a negative number, we want to stop the program. I want to say system.out.print, print line invalid number entered, enter a positive value. And then I will say system.exit. And that means terminate the program right here. I'll give it a non-zero value to suggest an error. And there we go. Let's run it one more time just to show that part. And I'll say -4. I press enter, and it says invalid number entered positive value. So that way I told the user, hey, we can't handle negative numbers. Doesn't make sense. What we did was we prompted the user, we input the value, we validated it, we did the computation, we output the value. That's our algorithm. This is the code that implements that. Now we're complete.